Welcome to the iGaming Africa webinars that is brought to you by iGaming Africa. Today, we are going to be having a conversation around Kenya's recent regulatory changes and specifically the new gaming law. We will look at what the law specifically states around holding gaming operations within the country. And I'm joined by my brothers Job Weku, Vivi Mwendwa, and Khan Blakeri, who will be helping us to clearly tackle this topic. Wherever you are watching us from, welcome. You are free to drop a comment in the chat. Please tell us where you are watching us from. But then I will allow my panelists to give a brief introduction about themselves so that they can tell us what they do, and then we will get it up from there. We can start with Job, and then Lucy, and then lastly, Khan.
Hi, thank you, Jeremiah. Hi, viewers. My name is Job Weku. I'm the Business Development Manager for Fazi in the African jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucy Vivi. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I'm also the head of legal for international government relations for Sigma Africa.
Thank you, Vivi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jeremiah. Webinar again on behalf of iGaming Africa. Hello, my fellow panelists and all viewers. I believe this is going to be a very important session. My name is Khan Bulakiri. I recently founded my own advisory named Vekamawe. No. And I spent quite some time at the B2B supplier side globally. And recently, last 2 years, I spent at a B2C African operator. And on a personal side as well, I spent quite some time in the last few months physically on the ground in Kenya, in Tanzania, and other African countries. So happy to be here. Very exciting times. Yeah, we'll discuss the details.
Okay, thank you so much, Khan. I love the name you gave your company, Wekamawe. It's actually a Kenyan name, very popular here, kind of meaning add more weight, add more weight. So thank you so much for the introductions. I would also like to appreciate our sponsors. So this webinar is sponsored by 3 companies, SoftSwiss, BetConstruct, and OneWin. So SoftSwiss is a leading provider for the gaming industry, together with BetConstruct AI. These are some of the best companies when it comes to products for operators. And now they are doing a great job in Africa. So welcoming you to explore some of the offerings they have to offer. And then OneWin, which is a global gaming company, that's an operator, also welcoming you to check out the platform. I will request that you give me a few minutes to also appreciate IGA Summit 2026, which happened recently in Nairobi. They are supporting this session and, of course, welcoming you to be part of the session that will be happening next year. Of course, we'll be giving you more details about that. And as well, iGaming Consult Africa, which is a partner to this event. So before we get started, I request that we play a few clips and then we get the session running. Thank you so much.
I'm a kitchen, I'm a killer.
Yeah, so thank you so much to our sponsors. And of course, I'd like to start by giving a brief description for this session. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar on the Gambling Control Act 2025 of Kenya. We are, of course, delighted to have you join us for what promises to be an insightful discussion on one of the most significant legislative reforms in Kenya's gambling sector in nearly 6 decades. The new act not only repeals the Betting, Lotteries and Gaming Act, Cap 131, but also introduces a modern regulatory framework designed to respond to the realities of the online gambling, technological innovation, consumer protection, and enhanced regulatory oversight. During this session, we will examine the key changes introduced by the Act, compare them with the previous legal framework, and discuss their practical implications for operators, service providers, regulators, investors, and consumers. We will focus on critical areas including licensing, taxation, money laundering, responsible gaming, advertising, the national lottery, self-exclusion mechanisms, enforcements and penalties. And of course, not to forget, we welcome you to share this conversation with us by giving us any feedback you may have. We hope this discussion will provide practical insights to help stakeholders understand the new legal landscape, prepare for compliance, and identify the opportunities and challenges presented by this important reform. So, Job, Vivi, and Khan, welcome. Officially, we can kick off the discussion. And my first question is to Job Weku. Job, of course, we have seen quite a number of updates or changes, especially when it comes to the Kenyan law regarding gaming. And a number of these changes have happened within the recent years. Could you give us an overview of what may have led to these reforms within the Kenyan gaming industry, and most specifically through the new act?
Thank you, Jeremiah. So, from my opinion, Kenya has been partly regulated over the years. At some point, we were barely regulated. And with time, it was time for things to change. And with new developments, there has to be new changes in terms of regulation. Now, probably I'll just touch what transpired between the last 2 years. And this was the increase in terms of the number of operators, which was probably facilitated by some lacuna in regulation, whereby you had two types of licenses, which are majorly bookmakers, which cover sports and virtual games, instant games, and crash games. And then on the other hand, we had public gaming, which was purely a license applicable to land-based casinos, but you could upgrade to offer online casino as well. Now, if you look at the rates, mostly applicable to locals, it was very, very affordable for you to come up with a bookmaker's license. Understand that over time, crash took over the market, and there was a spike in terms of revenue, and sports went down. So basically, in Kenya as a country, most revenues were coming in from cash, and we ended up having providers who could purely offer, standalone crash games as what they offer now to the customer. So they did away with sports. They did away with online casino, which was actually something that was very acceptable. So with this, we had a mushrooming of operators. So we had a number, I think, which shot up to, if I'm not wrong, 200 and something licensed operators, and majority of these people were actually riding on crash games only. So with this, there happened to be so many complaints from customers, whereby people could complain that they're getting deceiving advertising, they're getting deceiving messages, whereby if they look at probably what these guys are offering, the RGP is ought to probably be something 96 to 97%, but the losses were very huge. So which means there was some deceit from the operator's part. Now with this, the regulators had a challenge in terms of now getting to know who is who, because we had the famous Aviator, if I'm allowed to, just mention the name of the game. We had the famous Aviator, we had other brands which came up, probably mirroring the Aviator itself, but it was not Aviator. We had games which came up with the same algorithms, and no one could actually tell who's the provider, who's the provider, if the games are certified, if the games are licensed in any jurisdictions. But you see now, people were just offering them, and it really, really, really messed up the entire industry. So with this, I think the regulator sat down and they decided to come up with measures so as to cap this. There was that introduction of some restrictions in terms of marketing. Whatever you put out has to go through, a different regulator, just to mirror what the gaming regulators were stating. We also had the regulator insisting on getting to know who are the providers of these games. But you see now, I believe, to me, anyone can just come up with something and say, I'm getting this game from Europe. This is the company ABCD, and this is the letter. So you couldn't ascertain whether it was genuine or not. So from my understanding, Jeremiah, in brief, that is what happened. Now, with this, regulation had to come by for them to control probably the number of these operators. Regulation had to be introduced for them to curb this spread of, I don't know, rogue games or maybe fake games, and just games coming from anywhere and being dumped into the Kenyan market. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Job, for painting us the picture of what led to what we are seeing now. And I would like to invite Vivi, because she's from the legal side, to tell us about one of the other reasons which may have led to us seeing some of these changes, apart from what Job has said there. And to be specific, is that we were using a very old law. It was a 1966 law, and that needed actually to be reviewed. And I remember the last time we had a webinar and Vivi was part of it, one of the things she really cried on was like, how can we get a new law that can cover the recent developments in the times we are living in now? So, Vivi, could you tell us if this is one of the major reasons why we think Kenya is also moving the direction of regulating the industry in an advanced way?
Thank you very much, Jeremiah. As you've said, and as Job has said, we were operating under the 1966 law. So you can imagine back then what the lawmakers had in mind was sports betting, but shops, sports betting, and land casino. There was no online mobile, betting through online. There was no advertising through influencers. There was no payments like cryptocurrency, blockchain, PSP, and things like that. The penalty that the old law would give operators was between 2,000 to 5,000 shillings. In MACU right now, we have emergence of companies in the betting and gaming industries making millions. So the regulator sat down, and I remember in 2014 when there was the emergence of SportsPesa. SportsPesa launched mobile banking, and there was integration of mobile banking. And if I can take you back, I think in 2017, when the emergence of SportsPesa brought a lot of havoc in government, and the CS then, Fred Matiang'i, imposed 35% tax on gambling with winnings, which was withdrawn. And I think also in 2019, it led the government to suspend 27 operators because the old act did not envisage the rise of technology and the use of the penetration of the penetration of mobile, especially not in the city, but also in the other areas outside Nairobi. So Parliament met. There was interagency committee which was formed. BCLB released a concept paper in the year 2021. So 2022 now, that was post-COVID, because a lot before COVID, people used to walk into the betting shops, people used to walk into the land-based casino to bet. After COVID now, during the COVID period, that is when a lot of people now started betting using mobile. Then in 2022, the government, BCLB through government, they came up with the concept paper for legislation, and they asked Parliament, look, this industry has grown. We no longer need the 1966 Act because a lot of development has come. So a concept letter was developed, and in the year 2022, the first gambling control bill was tabled in the National Assembly. And since 2022 to 2025, there has been a lot of back and forth between the legislators, the drafters, and what it was used to be called the BCLB, trying to find solutions to the technology and how betting and gaming industry had evolved until late last year in August, now when the president assented to the Gaming Regulatory Act. And then when the act was assented to, we were given a transition period till February of this year. The government announced the transition period till February of this year, whereby they announced that from February, there was going to be new regulations that would govern now the parent act, which was the GRA Act. This year in February, there was a lot of back and forth between Parliament, Senate, and GRA. But as of last month or this month, 6 new regulations were introduced, and these 6 new regulations became law. So it was just a history of where we've come from. We started with betting shops, with land-based casino, to where now there was the emergence of mobile betting, and to where we are now with the new GRA Act and the 6 new regulations that try to provide solutions to the different challenges that the government was facing regarding the betting and gaming in Kenya.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vivi, for that detailed clarification. And now I want us to look at the new law and what has really changed when you compare it with the old one, so that we can know where we were and where we are now. So I allow Khan to come in on this one and try to show us what has really changed based on what was there and what is now on the major areas. Vivi, I know you mentioned the 6 regulations and the Parent Act. We will come back to that. But Khan, to you. Khan, if you can hear me. Yeah, so I think there is an internet connection problem, but as Khan tries to reconnect, I like to briefly share my screen here so that we can try and look at where we were and where we are now when you compare this previous act versus the new act. And then, of course, once Khan is back, he will give us some clarity on the same. So, of course, hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear? Okay. As Khan tries to reconnect, Khan, I'll come back to you. We can now try to look at what was there and what has really changed. So previously,
I think it's my turn to have.
yes,
Yeah, I think it's my turn to have
yes,
some connectivity issues.
okay. Yeah, Khan, proceed. Yeah, so Khan, we can hear you. Proceed, please.
Yes, is it back? Can you hear me? I think there is some delay in the line.
Yes, Khan, we can hear you. Proceed.
Yeah, so hopefully, if everybody can hear me, I think Job and Vivi have done an amazing job in the introduction. From my point, what I have seen from an operator side, especially, is that yes, after 60 years, I think it was the right time and right momentum that the government and the regulatory bodies have innovated, let's say, their act. I think the market from the commercial side had outgrown the legislation, which is nothing new, obviously. We have seen that in other African markets and other European global markets as well. Now, this can be seen as a new phase of maturity for the Kenyan market, which is one of the biggest markets in African continent and one of the fastest growing markets as well. This is an evolving regulatory framework. I believe it's laying better and more stable groundwork for a sustainable growth. For me, the key word to explain this new act is consolidation. This act obviously has brought a lot of changes, mainly on the financial end, mainly on the monetary side, but also a lot of changes on the non-monetary side. It created a lot of local implications. There is this 30% local ownership requirement, especially on the operator side. Okay, obviously the tax regime has changed, has in a way improved, or let's say gained clarity. I think overall, what this new act is trying to achieve is maturity, consistency, and clarity. It will create a lot of challenges for, like Job said, close to 200 operating bodies in the commercial market. And as I said, it will probably narrow down and create some consolidation. But I think it will also open up the market for bigger players, maybe globally bigger players, to seek to enter the market, perhaps through some mergers and acquisitions, M&As. And as we know, obviously, there's top four, top five players, operators dominating the market currently. I believe they will sustain and yeah, take advantage of this new landscape. It also has a lot of implications, like Vivi was saying, on advertisement. With the modern world using more digital advertising, moving away from traditional advertising. In a previous panel at iGaming Africa Summit, I had mentioned the leapfrog that African countries and especially the Kenyan market had taken, surpassing things like desktop or the local mobiles, moving into mobile only or mobile first. So the advertising restrictions will also create an interesting landscape. Obviously, the M-Pesa integration has to be very seamless, and some other mobile-only providers, obviously. On the player side, there will be implications. I think the trust element is very important. Like Job was mentioning in the beginning, there was a lot of deceit, there was a lot of deceiving messaging. So I believe one of the winners of this new act will be the players, the player protection. They have recently introduced a more proper self-exclusion elements into the law. I think it still has to be matured. So I think this is the bigger picture of, because you will hear a lot of people talking about, oh, this is $1 million investment to enter, to sustain. But I think there's a lot of other implications and other, let's say, improvements in the entire landscape for both B2C operators, B2B suppliers. I think another element is 3-year license approval or renewal. It used to be 1 year for each year for the operators. So I think even if it's very strict deadline, strict requirements, it's going to give a more future outlook once the operators have obtained those licenses correctly and properly. It's going to create some business stability for the coming 3 years, 6 years, and so on. So yeah, let me pause there. I hope that I've been able to clearly speak, but I think there's very big landscape that we need to look from different angles and not only, oh, it became very expensive or it became very strict. Okay.
Good.
Has that been clearly audible, Jeremiah?
Yes, perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Khan, for that clarification. So I think I'll request that we take a minute or so to look at the old versus new law and what might have changed, and then we'll continue the conversation from there. So previously, the old under the old act, that was a 1966 law, as my colleagues previously said. The regulator was the Betting Control and Licensing Board, but now we have an authority called GRA, which of course comes with more powers and even privileges to make some authoritative steps towards improving on some of the things that were not working previously with the board. And then under the scope, so the BCLB was primarily regulated betting, gaming, and lotteries with limited provisions for online gambling. Of course, the previous law, as Vivi said, did not envisage a point whereby online gambling will be highly technologically advanced. But the new law, of course, it creates a comprehensive framework covering both land-based and online gambling. Technology providers are also coming into place, and then equipment suppliers and related service providers. And then under licensing, the old law was focused on bookmakers, casinos, totalizers, pool betting, and lotteries, and licenses were 1 year and were expiring annually or required to be renewed after June, as Khan said. But then the new law comes with a 36 months validity for the license. And then there was previously no dedicated regulatory framework for online gambling, but now the new law introduces a new, an entirely new regime governing online gambling, player accounts, payment, and digital compliance. And then under the old law, there was no statutory requirement for Kenyan shareholding. However, of course, this was later on amended, and there was that requirement. And now the new law, it's very, very clear that there must be a 30% Kenyan ownership with a local, I mean a Kenyan or somebody holding a local identification card to own 30% stake in the company. And of course, under consumer protection, the old law had limited provisions, but now there is a very comprehensive framework for protecting players. And this also follows with the self-exclusion measures that have now been clearly established. And that also connects with advertising in the new law, where it's very clear, even the timelines when somebody is supposed to make advertisements on mainstream media, etc. And then AML also comes into play here, because the new law now really gives a good emphasis on that. Monitoring, the old law, of course, there was no central monitoring system, but the new law comes with that. And then the new law also establishes a structured national lottery. That also is the same case with a tribunal for solving or listening to cases and making decisions on the same. Also, penalties in the old law were quite low, but now the penalties are quite tougher and more stricter for those who don't comply. And then technology service providers are also regulated in the new law. That said, I think we'll go back to Job so that we look at now, Vivi, let's go to Vivi, whereby now you will tell us what it means with these new laws. You can give us some clarity on the 6 areas you mentioned, the 6 regulations, vis-a-vis what is in the parent act. I know we are still waiting for some more communication from the board, but with what is already out there in the parent act and in the 6 regulations, what can you tell us about it, and what should we really know? Vivi. Vivi, you are muted.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Jeremiah. I'll just go briefly into the 6 regulations, because one cannot do without the other. And I'll start with the first regulation, which is the gaming betting and licensing regulation, whereby I feel like GRA borrowed what is happening in the fintech world. Because if I can say this, in the fintech world, for anyone who's a director or a shareholder to apply for a license in the CBK, they will do a fit and proper investigations on all the shareholders and all the directors. This has been copied heavily from that, and in the regulation it introduces that if you are a director or a shareholder of the any operating company that wants to apply for the new license, you have to undergo a fit and proper test. What does this mean? They will check your criminal records. They will also check your credit history. They'll also check the source of funds verification. How they are going to do that, they will advise us as they've said. They will provide guidelines. You'll also have to demonstrate as an operator your technical capacity. So how they will do that, I don't know whether shareholders and directors will be told to, because in the fintech world, we provide the directors and shareholders usually submit CVs. And then now the central bank goes and reaches out to all the referees to confirm the credibility of this person. So I don't know how GRA intends to do this, but they've categorically stated that all shareholders and all directors will have to undergo fit and proper test. There's also the minimum paid up capital, which is 100 million which is no news to anyone who's following this development. 100 million for bookmakers and 100 million for the casino license. What is not sure, and probably this we can get from them, further guidelines from them, is whether these fees will be paid per license or per company. So it's not very, very sure whether it will be per license or per company, but they will provide guidelines. There will also be the issue of bank guarantee. The GRA Act says you have to provide a bank guarantee or performance bond of 100 million. But again, the GRA Act gives powers to the regulator to give guidelines on whether they want to be a bank guarantee, whether they paid up, whether the bank guarantee will be in form of security or whether we can take a performance bond on that. So again, this is one of those issues that GRA will have to confirm through its various guidelines that they want to provide. Also, right now, all operators are required to come up with AML program, which is going to be mandatory. And this one will entail KYC procedures, suspicious transaction reporting to FRC. Then we have transaction monitoring systems. Anyone who has attended FRC training before or anyone who's an MLRO knows what these terms are. In the previous act, this was not mandatory. It was just a circular that was issued by the previous regime, but right now the act makes it mandatory for anyone who has a casino license to have this reporting mechanism. Also, foreign operators offshore, the new act acknowledges foreign operators who are operating in Kenya. And the act states that for you to operate in Kenya, you have to open a subsidiary company in Kenya for you to be allowed to operate. So there will be strict geo-blocking. So you have to open a subsidiary company in Kenya with the 30% local shareholding, as it was previously stated, for you to be allowed to operate in Kenya. The second regulation, it's a conduct of gambling operation regulations. So this regulation, it entails how operators will conduct themselves. And this talks about the real-time transaction data feed to GRA. I think Job was saying, or I don't know if it was Khan, about the central monitoring system. So right now there will be a real-time transaction data in the GRA central monitoring system. Operators now are required, it's a mandatory to have a dispute resolution mechanism. And matters that are not settled after 30 days, they have to be escalated to GRA for their guidance. So it will be up to operators now to make sure that every dispute that is coming from different punters, they've set mechanism within their organizations to handle these disputes before 30 days, because after 30 days, a punter can approach GRA to escalate the matter. Another thing that with the second regulation that it has brought is the thing about all gambling equipment must carry a GRA technical type approval. How this will happen, again, GRA will give guideline on it. Also, all the platforms and software used by betting companies, they will have to have an NRG software that is certified by accredited labs. Accredited labs, we know who they are. I don't want to mention them, but also the Act gives leeway to GRA to provide a list of the approved accredited labs that operators can use. Also, in the conduct of gambling operation regulation, all audited accounts. Previously, we used to provide audited accounts when we are renewing licenses yearly. So right now, we have to submit the audited accounts by 31st of March every year to GRA. With also this new regulation, games rules and payouts. This is something that used to happen in the previous that I'm seeing. They've taken it, it's still the same thing. Game rules and payouts percentage have to be publicly displayed at all times. So this is something that it's something that they've maintained. The third regulation that GRA introduced is on online gambling regulation. So here they talk about geological controls, and they say there will be a mandatory blocking to restrict access from outside Kenya or EAC jurisdictions. If you're an offshore operator, there is a mandatory requirement for you to register a subsidiary company here. Otherwise, there will be a mandatory blockage. Now, in the online gambling, and this is very interesting, they've introduced KYC verification, where they're saying, yes, you'll be asked for an ID or passport, but then before you pay or before you deposit, you will have to take a selfie. So this is something very interesting that they have introduced and then the system of operators will have to be integrated with integrated population registration system. Anyone in Kenya who knows this, it's for IDs. So it's called IPRS. So all the systems for operators will have to be integrated with IPRS. I feel like they introduced this to curb minors who usually use their parents' phone or have access to phone to bet in the online platform. So right now the IPRS, once you register, the IPRS will be able to detect whether you are a minor, whether you're in Kenya, whether you're not in Kenya, whether you're dead, whether you're alive. So that's the purpose of it. Also, they've introduced cooling off periods, a minimum of 24 hours. After 24 hours, they give 72 hours for self-exclusion. This was not previously in the previous act. Now they've introduced it in this new act. They've also introduced session timeouts where operators will be obligated to implement mandatory session reminders after intervals, probably 1 hour, 2 hours, and logouts after a maximum of 4 hours. This was not there before, so right now it's there. So this is part of responsible gambling. Also, they've introduced, and this one, it was very interesting, deposit limits. It was not there before. Right now it's there, where they say default daily limits for any punta will be 5,000 shillings, unless player explicitly, unless a punta says they want to increase. So if you have a punta in your platform who says, okay, I have money, 5,000 shillings is not, it's a minimal amount, I want to increase it, you have to take that request. You don't implement it immediately. You have to implement it after 24 hours. So the minimum default daily limit will be 5,000 shillings. If someone comes, if you have a punta, we know we have VIP puntas in our platforms. If someone wants to introduce that above, wants to even bet with, let's say for a figurative amount of 50,000, you will get that request. But as an operator, you will have to implement that after 24 hours. Then we have the regulations for advertising and marketing, whereby they are saying TV and radio bans from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. There's no advertising except during live broadcasts or live football. And even if there's live football like FIFA, what is going on right now, the message, if there's any advertising, the message will have to have a message of responsible gambling message. Then celebrity, influencer, content creator endorsements are still prohibited. It was before, but even right now they've maintained it. No gambling within 200 meters radius on any school or hospital. Every hard must carry the responsible gambling message like 18 plus, responsible gambling message that excessive gambling is harmful, customer care telephone number. So for example, if an operator X wants to advertise, they have to put the 18 plus message there, the message, and then they have to put their telephone number there. So also they've been very categorical and they've stated that no target of minors, self-excluded persons are excluded, also vulnerable groups are excluded. They've introduced strict penalties. The minimum penalty is 20 million shillings or 20 years imprisonment or both if you're found to not be following the advertising guidelines. And then before you advertise, you have to seek the clearance of GRA. Any message an operator wants to advertise, you have to lay that message, put it in an audio if it's an audio. If it's a video, put it in a flash or a soft, share it with GRA before they give you the leeway to advertise and before they recommend if that encompasses everything that they want you to advertise on. Then now they've also put the issue for the last regulation is the National Responsible Gambling Regulation, whereby now there will be a national self-exclusion register. Once a person opts out, that person has opted out, Another interesting thing, Jeremiah, a family member can petition an operator to block the family from betting in their platform. So once a family member raises that petition or raises that request, it's the obligation of the operator to accept. Yeah. So I feel like I've explained in brief what all these regulations are.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vivi. And just before we proceed, I can hear the heat in the room, but then all these are meant for the best for the industry. And I request that we take a break for a few minutes, probably 2 minutes or a minute, just to make sure that we come back to discuss on some of the areas that Vivi has pointed on. So please, dear panelists, we request you to keep engaging with us. Send the comments on LinkedIn or YouTube. We are live. I can hear Eric Mwai saying, Weka mawe. Can you love that? And then Vivi, there is a request from Muhizi Daniel, a good friend of ours from Rwanda, who's saying that this is wisdom as at its best. He's requesting if there will be a presentation that can be shared after the session. So Muhizi, make sure you send me a message on WhatsApp or on LinkedIn or Telegram, and then we will send to you whatever it is that we have. And then there is Malala Handila, very nice name there. Who says that this is very insightful. There is also another request from Tigran that can we also have the presentation after the webinar. So if you have my contact, or we will share that at the end of the session on the LinkedIn or YouTube comment section, please drop me a message and then we will send you what we have. So allow me to appreciate the sponsor, one of the sponsors for this webinar, iGaming Africa Summit, that did its first edition of the summit here in Nairobi, Kenya, this past May. And happily, the dates for the next event are out. It's going to be happening on the 4th to 6th of May 2027 at the Sarit Expo Center here in Nairobi, Kenya. It was a first edition that really exceeded our expectations. I love to play a small clip, and then I'll give you a message that we have from the Gambling Regulatory of Kenya before we can proceed. So as they say here in Nairobi, and Khan reiterates the same message, Weka Mawe, we are ready for 2027. If you don't know the meaning of Weka Mawe, please check the internet. It's a very, very popular saying here in Kenya. So please allow me to read a statement that I have here. But before that, I have also another message from the IGA Summit team. They are telling me that we cannot proceed before we appreciate their first exhibitor for 2027, SMPL Core. Thank you so much. So registration for sponsorship and exhibition is open officially. You can also check out SMPL Core. This is a game provider, a company that, of course, can help revamp your gaming operations. So this is a message from the DG, whom we met this morning before this session. And as we proceed, I'd like just to highlight some of the things he said. And number one is that there have been concerns around the license fees, which changed significantly. But one point that the DG said is that the rates are halfway what was actually proposed in Parliament. So at some point, Job will give us the costs for the licenses, but the rates are quite halfway. The proposed rates earlier were like 100 million Kenya shillings for a sports book license, and as well another 100 million for a casino license, just to match the capital investment. And now the prices we have are halfway that. Job, after this, will give clarity on the prices. And the other thing that we got clarity on is that we really need to look at this law keenly. I know Vivi has really done a good job by giving us a brief about what the law says, but then it's important that we study it keenly so that we understand what the law comes with. For example, there are provisions for having a prediction markets license, and people are not talking about it. So this act actually comes with several things that we need to study keenly before we can comment. Another question that has been coming up really is around the 60-day notice that was given by the GRA for anybody who needs to apply, because there is nobody who has a license at this point. Everybody is operating. Anybody who is operating is supposed to apply a new license, whether you had a license previously or not. So we asked a question around what happens after 60 days if somebody has not complied. So then the answer is that the most important thing you need to do is to make sure that, first of all, you submit your application. And then there will be another window that will be opened for those who will not manage to do it, but you cannot continue operating if you don't do that. And then another circular is due for release within the next 2 or 3 weeks from the board, because the application window has not yet been opened for those that need to apply. It should also be opened within the next few days, but the timeline that was already given of 60 days still remains. So even if it is the 59th day, at least if you want to remain operating in the industry, you have to submit your application. The other thing is that according to the office of the DG, that's the Director General, the goal for requiring, for example, B2B service providers to register is not to tax them or to make their life difficult. It is actually to know them, because so many companies, as Job said, are operating in the industry with, for example, fake RTP. And it is because these companies are not kind of regulated, or the board does not know them. So the board wants to know these companies. They also need to know your relationship with the operators you are servicing. So that means you may have to share with them the agreements that you have with the various providers, so that they can even know how much revenue you are sharing. These are not my words. These are the words of the DG, who was giving clarity on some areas that are raising questions in some people's minds. And then there was another recommendation that because the prices for the license, let's say, are high, then it may be a bit difficult for smaller companies to stay afloat and continue operating. So there was a recommendation that because this is now a law, it's not going to be changed, not unless there is this is brought again before the floor of the House. This is how we have to work with it. And the recommendation was that smaller companies can come together and get one license and continue operating. If you're good in marketing, focus on marketing platform. This guy comes with a platform, and the other one comes with license fees, and you continue operating. And then I know Job mentioned this earlier, that and Vivi, actually, the two of them mentioned this, that within the law, there is a requirement that any company that will be regulated by this act is supposed to register a company and actually have 30% local shareholding by a local, a Kenyan local. And there was some clarity on this, that we will get more details once the next circular is out, because the act will give a lot of clarity on now what is supposed to be done. So we will wait for the act, but as I said, the mission for this is not to tax you, is not to kick you out of the market, is not to make your life difficult, but is actually meant to protect the industry and also protect your business. Because when there are companies that are offering, let's say, fake RTPs, these companies cannot be companies that are regulated. These are companies that are operating that way because they do not have anybody who is looking at them. So these are some of the points that we got. And then now I think we can proceed. Job, based on what Vivi said and what Khan said, of course, Khan is joining us shortly. Do you have something you can also add on what she said?
Thanks, Jeremiah. I think for me, my emphasis will be on one, the repercussions and what we ought to expect vis-a-vis what is factual. So, Jeremiah, I'm not sure if the DG holds brief for the tax regulator. I'm not sure, but if you were to say that, let me just touch on section 29 of the Act, which says anyone who wants to engage or venture in any gambling activity in Kenya ought to be one, a body corporate, and must have 30% local shareholding. And then it goes ahead to say, holding local bank accounts, blah, blah, blah. Now, if I'm to look at this, I don't know if the DG has power to say that the intention is not to tax, because that now basically falls under different sector. Because once you incorporate a company, I don't know how you're going to I don't know how you're going to escape taxation in Kenya. So that, Jeremiah, is questionable. Then the other thing is what we ought to expect is, just based on the B2B providers to be licensed with scant information. Is it a must for them to incorporate a company? Definitely, the Act says there has to be 30% local shareholding. In terms of certification, which certifications are required? We know we have, and I'm not shy to mention them. We have BMM, there's GLI. I don't know who else, but they all have different certificate categories. That is scanty as well. We don't know which um, certification is going to be required, or in future will we have a specific license, certification for the Kenyan market like what South Africa does. So some of these things are not clear. Now, the other thing about, let me just refer to my notes. So the other thing about the new licensing fees, um, from DG's advice, I don't know how it feels to the small operators when he says what was proposed in Parliament was much worse than what was passed, because if the old licenses, and just for example, if with the old license regime, if I was to go for the two licenses, that is the bookmakers and online casino, it would cost me probably like something like $100,000. Then now it is actually short up to the two of them being. So if I'm to look at the licensing fee, inclusive of the application fees, I'm looking at a hundred and actually $1.6 million for the two. So I don't know if the small operator should be happy being told that it is not as worse as what was proposed in Parliament. It's still the same. It's very harsh. It's very harsh. I know there's much complaint, and as Khan said, basically Kenya is poised to be a market for the big boys. So if you're not playing in the $1 million category, trust me, you're not going to have a license. Now, Jeremiah, the other aspect of small operators probably joining up and forming up a company and coming up with that's I don't know how it sounds, honestly. I don't know operator B, C, D. Where's the time for me to look for these guys, run due diligence and see if we can, pull up funds and run businesses together? It's very harsh. So the repercussions are simple and very clear. Job losses, that's a fact. Um, Job losses is a fact. Uh, it's now an introduction of probably big boys who we foresee most majority of them are going to be foreign operators. That's a fact. So I don't know how it sounds, but I could be wrong, but that's my opinion, and probably from a few friends. Yeah. Now, in terms of the B2B licensing, so clarity ought to be given. Uh, the law says, and it's very clear on Section 29, as I mentioned, incorporation is a must. Now, so what happens to the old ways of doing business? Because I know these guys had an agreement whereby 16% VAT was not part of it. Now, you being a body corporate incorporated in Kenya, yeah, 16% ought to be applicable now to any business or any invoices that you issue. There's another aspect of e-teams that people ought to know. Yeah, you being incorporated in Kenya, there's an aspect of the corporate tax at the end of every year. So I don't know if we are going to escape this. We need clear information on this. But on the positive side, when it comes to licensing of B2Bs, uh, we're looking at a very clean and sane market whereby if you are not certified, if you are not licensed by the regulator, there's no way you're going to fly your games in Kenya. So it's something that is good on the player side, as well as good on most of these providers, because it's now a market which is going to be sane, and probably you being a slots provider, you expect other slots providers to come and compete fairly and squarely. I don't know if there's something else I've missed, but Jeremiah, yeah, that's the view from my side.
Yeah, thank you so much, Job, for that clarity. I know there is quite a lot that we anticipate once the next circular comes from the board, because now, as an authority, I believe they have powers to give us guidance on what to expect. So I would therefore really hope that we can have this conversation again after the regulations. I mean, we have been given direction by the board, because we will now be commenting from a point of knowing, not from a point of something we anticipate and we are unsure of. But then thank you so much, Job, for that. I'd like to bring in Khan to the conversation, and specifically, Khan, you started by touching on the opportunities, and probably the three of us, we can start with Khan, and then we come to Job and Vivi. Do we see any opportunities? And then as you touch on the opportunities, also give us some of the challenges you anticipate. I know we have already touched on a number of them, but in case there is anything we have left out in terms of the opportunities and challenges. But then I would request you allow me to sample some comments. It's a long discussion, so we might exceed the session by a few minutes. Boipelo from the test labs says BMM test lab. Boibelo, our good friend, says yes, Job. She's agreeing with Job and says GRA introduced a new requirement that test labs must also be licensed with them. So that means that even testing companies will need to register with the GRA. And then she argues that the 60 days period for operators is a short notice. And the response, as I said, we got on that one is that once the 60 days expire, of course, another window will be opened. We don't know when, but guidance will be given by the board. So anybody who will miss the application by the time this window is expiring will have an opportunity on another day to apply. And then I have here a comment from some questions, actually, from Tony Wanyama, quite a number of them. Let's just look at what Tony is saying. A few clarifications needed. What does it mean for foreigners to register locally in terms of shareholding for locals, taxes, and need for GLI or I mean BMM or any test lab certifications? And then we have his second question. What are the exact fees for renewal of licenses versus registration for the 3-year period? Job, do you want to please touch on that very quickly, like on the schedule for the fees before we go to the opportunities and challenges?
Yes, I can. So let me just look at. Just give me a few minutes to.
Yes, as Job checks that, and then
this.
number 3, Job, once you get there, tell me. We have Tony again asking, the 100 million can be in form of insurance. One insurer confirms 2.75 million, but yes, guidance needed. Is it per company or per license? And I think these are some of the questions, Tony, we will have answered when the next regulation, communication comes from the board. And then he asks, foreign operator versus foreign platform provider requirement are different. It's like a question. I'm just sampling some of them so that any of the panelists, whichever question you think you have answers to, you can touch on it once you tell us about the opportunities and challenges you foresee with this new regulation. But then, Job, take us to the license fees.
Oh, okay. So just to answer Tony, I know Tony is much interested in the online business, which is bookmakers and online casino. Now, both have their own independent fees, but sort of similar in terms of numbers. So the application fee for bookmakers is 5 million Kenya shillings. That is the application fee, which is non-refundable. That means your application can be declined or approved. And 5 million Kenya shillings, just to be translated into US dollars, you're talking about something like roughly $39,000. Okay, the same applies to online casino. Then once your application is approved, then we move now to the licensing fees. So the licensing fees, the license fees are actually the same, which is 5 million Kenya shillings, that is $39,000. Bookmakers, and the same applies to online casino. So with this, your license period is to run for a period of 3 years. But there is something that ought to happen within these 3 years. So there's a fee which is termed as an annual operating fee, which stands at 5 million Kenya shillings. Okay, 5 million Kenya shillings. That is $39,000. So I don't know. Okay, from its own wording, that means every year you're going to be paying $39,000. Okay, waiting for the third year for you to renew the license. When it comes to now renewal of the license, it's actually been cut into half. It's now $2.5 million. I mean, 2.5 million Kenya shillings, which translates to, let's say, 19,500 US dollars. And the same applies to online casino. Then for the license fee, for the renewal fees of the license, it's at 10 million Kenya shillings, which is roughly $77,500. The same applies to online casino. So yeah, and then now you continue with the annual operating fee of 5 million Kenya shillings, or $39,000. So
And this
basically
is for
that's
a
it.
sportsbook job?
Yeah, so the same fees applies to online casino.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me bring you now we start with Khan. By the way, if you want to get these licenses across various African countries, one of the sponsors for this session, iGaming Consult Africa, can help you to undergo these processes and even these requirements of what is required. So the email is info@igamingconsult.africa. So let's go to Khan. Please now take us to the opportunities and challenges that you foresee before we go back to Vivi, and then Job in case there is something you missed.
Before Can starts, I
Okay.
want to also add on what the fees for whatever job as described. Part of also the fees is for key gambling employees. So key gambling employees, I'm assuming it's the director, shareholders. Actually, not assuming. The Act says, when you look at Section 2 of GRA Act, it talks about who key gambling employees are, who are directors, shareholders, anyone in operations, and an MLRO officer. So falls under key gambling employees. So there are fees that they'll have to pay in addition to the fees that you're supposed to pay that job as described. And this is if you're local, if you're a director who's local, the application fee is 50,000, the license fee is 100,000. If you're a foreigner, be it a director or a shareholder, the application fee is 50,000 and the license fee is 200,000, right? This is for key gambling employee. Then for director/shareholder, the local will be 50,000, license will be 100,000. Then a shareholder/director who's foreign, the local will be 50,000, and the director's license fee will be 200,000. Also, when you want to do any advertisement, before, if you wanted to do any advertisement, you had to just seek a letter of approval from the board, put the advertisement that you want to advertise, and then the board will give its guidelines, approve or not approve. But right now, you have to do an application fees of 50,000 Kenya shillings. And when it has been approved, you pay an approval for advertisement. They look at the total budget cost and they will charge you 6% of the total budget cost. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Vivi, for making clarity on the fees. But then we can now proceed to the session on opportunities and challenges, because the new law must also have some good things within it. And then on the challenges, of course, we can always work on them with the board to see how the same can be reviewed. But then any opportunities you foresee, and probably any challenges and recommendations on how this can be tackled. Job. Vivi, we start with you. Okay, Vivi.
Challenges that I foresee is in the more online gambling, the EKYC verification. We know very well, like for example, in Kenya, not many people have Android phones. Some people bet using these Mulikamwizi phones. So how will you be able to take a selfie and verify yourself? Because mobile penetration is just within the town areas. When you go to the rural areas, like how will you be able, that would be a challenge, especially for guys. And if you look at if you study the Kenyan market, a lot of people from outside Nairobi are the ones who usually engage in the betting and gaming, especially online. So how will GRA try to sort this out? Another issue that I'm seeing in the implementation of the GRA and the risk is, we know the BCLB was under the Ministry of Interior. Right now, it has been moved, and now GRA is its own institution, which means the staff who are under BCLB, between 40 to 60, have now been moved and to GRA. So what happens to the different staffs, the different employees, the different individuals that will be required to enhance GRA? Because we need forensic investigators, we need legal counsels, we need compliance officers. How will GRA plan to recruit these, especially when we know that recruitment in the government, private sector salary risk poses a challenge? So how are they in the implementation? How do they want to implement this? When we talk about the GRA technological development, they've talked about the central monitoring system, but the central monitoring system is still under procurement, I am assuming, or is still under development. Estimated time, when is the estimated time that this central monitoring system will be complete? The people that will be employed, the technical people that will be employed to monitor this technical, the system, the central monitoring system, how long will it take? We have only 60 days period. By the end of August, all pay bills will be closed. All pay bills will be closed. So if there is an extension, the GRA has not communicated. As you've said, you talked to the DG, he advised there would be other circulars that are coming up. But as of right now, we just have, it's even less the days. It was 60 days, right now it's less. So how do we circumvent that? When we talk about offshore platform enforcement, how does GRA want to collaborate with the Communications Authority of Kenya? We've known the history between GRA and Communications Authority of Kenya. How will this be enforced? How will these offshore companies, and someone has asked, like, will they be required to have the 30% local ownership, or as a subsidiary, you'll just be required to just register as you are from whichever country that you are? So these are the guidelines that GRA needs to give to implement the challenges and risk. Constitutional litigation risk. We know under Section 46 of the Constitution, it gives consumers the power. If any consumer feels like something is not right, or they feel that there's a challenge in something, it gives them the right to go to court. So the operators may feel the risk that, number one, the fees for the licensing fees is high, the bank guarantee fees is high, public participation, probably the process of public participation, and public participation as envisaged in the Constitution was the due process followed. So you might find that as much as GRA is trying to implement the GRA Act and the sixth regulation, you might find that early constitutional petitions may be anticipated, which may delay key provisions between this first period to 24 months. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Vivi, for that clarity. So, sorry, I think we lost you for a minute, but I can see now you're back stable and perfect. So, please give us your thoughts around the key opportunities and challenges that you may see. And because you come from the other side, we would like
Can
you
you
to
hear me?
help us compare what is... yes, we can hear you, Can. Let's help us.
Apologies to everybody, the viewers, and apologies to and to you, Jeremiah. The technology hasn't been my friend. It got the best of me today, unfortunately. But I'm very glad and happy to be lucky to be joined by such strong panelists. It all in great detail and elaboration. I want to just share some closing remarks, if I can. I think the opportunity starts from the players. It starts from the market, not from the professional side, but from the player side. So we are here we are looking at it from a business point of view. We are looking from a legislative point of view, legal point of view, but an operator, globally successful operator, knows that it all starts with your customer, with your player. So I think the opportunity here is that the player is more protected. The player will have more trust factor, and the market will mature. Perspective, okay. There are rules like my panelists mentioned for faster, for player protection, eventually complaints on legal ways. So once a player landscape is mature, then this will have a long last on both B2C operate and B2B supplier side. And I specifically want to mention for gaming labs, like Job had mentioned earlier, without going into too many repetitions. Like I said in the beginning, this is a phase of maturity, clarity, and consistency for the Kenyan market as a whole. All players, from government, regulatory bodies, operators. Yes, the challenge is on the financial side, mainly on the compliance side, right? The entry have eased in terms of financial investment, renewals. I specifically mentioned that the 3-year renewal period is an advantage for any stable operator. It creates a business stability and contingency. For the B2B, I want to explicitly mention this is a great opportunity for those who want to focus specifically on these markets. Okay, here's the B2B suppliers will not be able to enter just randomly or casually. They have to have local presence. They have to have business focus. Africa and in particular Kenya will be on the board level discussions on the business outlook plannings. This is very significant global perspective. Okay, so only those who take seriously and who perfectly and properly focus will succeed, especially in the beginning phase, because this is creating a great first mover advantage. If you can have your papers clean and all your compliance, technical compliance, game rules, regulatory compliance all clean, then this will open a great market for B2B suppliers. So just to recap, I see a lot of maturity from a player perspective, which is greatly to be appreciated. It's a very similar pattern in Europe and in global markets in the last decade or decades. And as I always said to many of my business partners, my friends, this is a long game. This is of last years to 10 years. And it will just basically surpass many of the expectations that are currently, I think, underestimated when it comes to Kenya potential and African potential in general. So I'm overall I'm in a opportunity sentiment from all these developments, but obviously more clarity and further development will be needed.
Yeah, thank you so much, Khan. Very positive insights there. Thank you so much. Job, before we come to you, Peter Emolemo from the African iGaming Alliance has a comment for you. Hey, Job, I hear you. The high license fees may now accelerate the black market. I would have thought maybe the GRA would propose a payment plan, say monthly, to keep them afloat. Actually, Peter, the good thing is that the GRA is now an authority, and some of these proposals will actually be taken up by them. But then, Job, what do you have to say about this and the preparedness of the authority? Because the new law comes with a number of provisions that will be labor and capital intensive. So a lot of work needs to be done to ensure that the law actually works the way it is supposed to.
Okay. Nice to hear from Peter Emolemo. So, Jeremiah, just to touch on the black market thing. One, it's a fact that having close to like 200 operators and introducing hefty, licensing fees to narrow them down, which probably we're looking at maybe 20 out of the existing ones probably having to maybe afford these licensing fees. So that means we're looking at probably doing away with either 180 operators who can't afford these licensing fees, and that's something that leads to crazy amount of job losses. This is something that I can't even comprehend. It's just sad because if you were to hear the concerns from most of these operators, who most of them are my friends, so for them it's just fingers crossed. Whatever is going to happen in the next remaining probably 45 days or 30 days in this licensing window, they're not sure. So they're really worried, and even part of their staff know that most of their bosses probably won't afford to do this, because over and above the licensing fees, you have the gambling capital, which is almost like $1 million. Yeah. So you're not even sure whether the regulator is going to give them an allowance of having an insurance bond, or they are going to insist on you coming up with this by way of bank guarantee. So we're looking at probably something like $3 million. Okay. Now, as I say, job losses. Now with this, some of these guys won't let this business go, because most of them have actually saved for this business. So there are options. So what is the other option? Black market. Now with black market, there's no license, there's no taxation. And then, as we know, we have plenty of PSPs all the way from Europe, America, and most of them from Africa, who can, support such things. So if GRA have no clear mechanisms in how to fight the black market, then the fight is now on your doorstep. Black market here you come.
Yeah.
So the
Thank you.
yeah, the other thing is this. Let me just talk about the opportunities. As Khan has mentioned, great opportunity for B2B, because it's going to be a clean market whereby only the serious ones are going to thrive. The same will apply to operators. It's a market for the big boys. So we expect to see all the big names coming all the way from Europe to come and invest in Kenya, because they know the market share is open and there's a huge scramble for it. Um, we're looking at probably some sort of new revenue from the government if they are to license the B2Bs. That is an introduction of new revenue. So there's going to be new revenue on the government side, and a bit of new jobs probably for these B2Bs. And yeah, that's all I can say from my side as a closing statement, Jeremiah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And just to clarify, is that the new law?
Immediately,
Yes, yes.
I must leave.
Okay, yeah. Can please your closing remarks as
Leave.
we end?
So I will
Yeah,
catch up with you.
yeah. Yes, can please your closing remarks?
And apologies for the options.
Okay, yeah. So, Khan, there. Thank you so much, Khan, for being part of the session. Has to jump on to another meeting. We extended for some time, but we are finishing up because the topic we are discussing is not the normal discussions we usually have. But then, just to give some more clarity, is that for those who may want to go gray, you must also know that the new law comes with similarly hefty penalties and actually even imprisonment in some instances. So it's important that we really try to find solutions and not to create more problems. The other thing is to have now closing remarks, because we are coming to the end of this session. As we close, I'd like to sample a comment from um, Delicious by Nemo. I have seen that there are new regulations issued under the new act. I'd like to ask if the Gambling National Lottery Regulations 2026 are in force. I can't seem to find the gazettement notice. Before I allow Vivi to weigh in on that one, uh, please note that the implementation of the new law is going to be done in phases. So they are starting with the critical ones like licensing, because that is more important than some of the other ones. But then the other regulations will come with time. So Vivi, please, any comment on the same as you give in your closing remarks, and then we
Yes,
can also
there
come
is
to Job.
the, yeah, so I think there is the Gambling Control National Lottery Regulations 2026. So what you can do, probably Jeremiah can share with you the 6 regulations, and if anyone wants to have access to them, they can reach out to you so that you can share the same to them. My closing remarks are: the law is the law. The law is not going anywhere. Fortunately or unfortunately, we just have to find ways of how to work within the law. I always go by this policy that you have to find solution. Like if the law states this is what you have to do, like for example on the capital requirement, or for the platforms to be certified, or for the game providers to acquire license, what is the solution? How can we go around it? That is how we need to move forward, because the law has been passed. until someone goes to court and challenges it, until someone goes to court, until the court probably declare the 6 regulations and the act and constitution, this law is here to stay. The other day, 2 weeks or is it 1 week ago, the GRA gave guidelines and it required operators to just state like what type of software providers they have, what type of payment services they use, what is their platform, is it in-house, have they been given by a third party. A lot of guys called me and I was always advising people, give out this information. It's not to ban you, it's not to make you pay more taxes, it's not to make you pay more fees than what is there. Give out this information. We just need to find ways of working around the new 6 regulation and the GRA Act. And eventually, as GRA says, the purpose is just to be in par with best practices like the UK, like Canada, be in best practices with other countries. We'll just have to find ways of just working around it. That's it.
Thank you so much. Job, your closing remarks.
Okay. I welcome most of the articles or clauses in the new act. But if there's a way, if the intention was actually to cut down on the number of operators, I think there could have been better ways, which actually most of them are provided in the act, other than the hefty licensing fees. So that's simple as that from me as a closing remark.
Yeah, so thank you so much, dear panelists, for your time. Of course, I know there may be several questions you may have in your minds, but then all the speakers and the speakers for this session, you can easily reach out to them on LinkedIn or on WhatsApp or Telegram if you have their details. Vivi Lucy on LinkedIn, I think it's the easiest way you can find her, a legal consultant and also working for the amazing Sigma World, which is doing a wonderful job in the industry of iGaming events across the world. And then Job Weku, a leading industry consultant and also the key business development manager for Fazi, game provider in Africa. So thank you so much, dear panelists. We will close it at that. But as we said, there is more communication that will come from the board. So nothing is cast on stone. Whatever we are discussing is just looking at what is already out there. But in the coming days, we will see more communication coming from the board, and you need to continue checking out the iGaming Africa platform for a follow-up webinar with these same panelists once the full guidelines are issued. Thank you so much. We will close with information about our sponsors. So this webinar was brought to you by 3 amazing companies: SoftSwiss, OneWin, and BetConstruct. SoftSwiss is an amazing company within the software industry in gaming, and as well BetConstruct. And also we had OneWin, or OneWin Partners, which is a company that is an operator, a global operator, and it's important that you check out their platform. So thank you so much. We'll close with some clips from our sponsors. Until next time, it is goodbye.